Today I want to tie daddy long legs. It's a very useful fly. Now this particular one here has got feather fibre wings. I'm going to tie them with the floss wings because I think it's a bit easier for a newcomer to fly tying, and this is really the type of guy I'm aiming at. I'm going to use the floss wings, and I'll show you in a moment. The reason they're easier is because the wings tend to twist when you wind this parachute hackle around. Anyhow, the legs, you can see a knotted pheasant tail like this. This is a section of pheasant tail. Just take out a couple of strands and tie a knot in them. Now, it's a bit fiddly to do, and I hope it comes out okay on camera, because when you try to do this type of thing on camera, sometimes it doesn't quite work. Just tie a knot like this. Not too bad. I've used a double one, which I tend to do, and you tie knots like that. Okay, that's one. You need several of them. 6, I think. Some people put on 8, but very often you get about 4. And you see how it comes out? When it's double, you get 2 feet. And, pardon me, that's what I like to use. Okay, now you can use other things for the legs, but I think a section of pheasant tail herl is best of all. Now I'm going to tie a parachute hackle on this, so we're going to need a stalk. A post for the hackle. Now, first of all, to talk a little bit about the fly, it hatches from a grub, a sort of maggoty type of grub, which likes damp ground. So it's often near, the grub is buried in the ground. It digs into the ground. Because it likes damp ground, it's often near the river. Now, it's a very inefficient flyer, so it gets blown onto the water. And very often, if you're walking towards the river in the month of, say, August, usually August, there's a couple of them here, you'll find you'll disturb them, and they get blown onto the water where they go tumbling across the surface. And very often, if you watch them, it'll often end in a spectacular boil. And it often takes the largest trout. It's a bit like ground baiting when you walk towards the river like that. Now, I like to use a parachute hackle on this. It's not essential, but I like it because it's a terrestrial fly. It's not a water-bred fly. It's a land-bred fly. So all water-bred flies have the ability to shed water. But land-bred flies, terrestrials as they're rightly called, tend to absorb water. They get waterlogged on contact, so they sit lower in the water. And this parachute hackle, like this, imitates that fine. They sit low in the water. Now, lately, there's been a trend towards a detached body on the daddy long legs, and with a smaller hook. I'll show you one here. This is a detached body, and you see that, and a much smaller hook. Now, this is a different one I used to tie years ago, but I found with this that although you get plenty of takes, the body is foam, by the way, although you get plenty of takes, it certainly looks the part. I find that the trout often become unstuck. So I find that by using a larger hook and not doing a detached body, the fly sticks better in the water. It sticks better holds onto the trout better. Okay, now I'm going to tie in the hackle and the post for the hackle. And the post I said I'm going to use is white floss. So the way I do that is I just wind it around my finger like this, till I get a few winds, say a bit like that, and I just tie it on where I want the post to be. Just bear with me a second till I get this right. Drawing this through a little bit. I'll be trimming this afterwards, and this is going to be the post. Now I trim this surplus off. That's about right. I'll just take that one off. And you see I've got a loop there. And what I do with the loop, you can use a gallows tool. I've got a gallows tool, and you just hook it up a bit like that. I'm going to make this a little bit shorter. I've got a hook. I've put a hook up above me here to instead of a gallows tool. I've got a gallows tool, but I find it gets a bit. This is a bit better in my opinion. Just bear with me a second. This should be about right. Can you see the loop there? And I've got that. Now that gives me a bit of strength. Now when I tie in the hackle, I tie in the hackle like this. I'll nip that rough piece off. Tie in the hackle like this. Tight up to the post. Just draw that one through a little bit. And we'll bring this up so the hackle stands up, and the post, this is what I'm going to wind my hackle around. So if you bear with me while I do this, you may be able to see what I'm doing. I'm winding around the base in preparation to tie in the hackle. Just like that. Now I'm forming a post here, and years ago, when this fly was first tied, it was tied by, I'm going to take this off for a moment, it was tied by, invented by a Scottish company called Alex Martin, and they had a lady fly tyer who invented this style of hackle. Okay, I'll just trim this up a teeny bit. Partridge actually produced a hook with a little metal piece sticking up to take the parachute hackle, but that was years ago now, and that's gone. Okay, we don't need that now. Now I'm going to put on the rib, and I'm going to use flat gold, duo, gold one side, silver the other side. And I'm just going to tie it with the wrong side facing me, as usual, to so that when I wind it over, I've got the gold showing. Now a rib is a little bit unnatural on a bright rib like this. You wouldn't find it in the natural world on a fly, but I gather, it certainly makes the fly attractive, and it shines, it gives the impression of a bit of light bursting through the body. Right, for the body I use peacock, this is from, I can't remember the bird, turkey. It's turkey herl. It's from a turkey herl. So I like the colour. Herl body looks natural when it's on, and it doesn't absorb water, and it's very light. This is a dry fly, so you'll see what I mean. Now all I do with this, you may have seen me do this before, I get a section of the feather like that, which I cut off. I'll do it here so it doesn't fall on the floor, bear with me. got a section of feather like that. I straighten out the tips and I just catch it in and wind it up behind the body. Sorry, behind the post for the wings. Right, you can see what I'm doing. Just winding this down like this. I'll park my silk there for a moment and I wind it on. Herl body is very useful in a dry fly, and I think it gives the sort of colour that you want for a daddy longlegs. Proper name is the crane fly. Now I just bring that up behind the behind the wing post. And I'm going to nip this off. Just like that. Now I'm going to rib it. With a rib, you'll have heard me say go the opposite way, but with a firm body like this, but it won't disappear and tuck into the windings, it doesn't matter. So I'm winding the same way as I wound the body, which is a little bit unusual. Trying to get my windings even, just because they look better. Okay, just secure it there. There's no tail on the crane fly. Right, that's that. Now I'm going to put on the legs. The legs I showed you earlier that we were making. Got a few tied up here. I try to put on about 6. Doesn't matter too much. The trout can't count. Take my silk back there. Tie on about there. Tie 3 this side. Like that. Spread them out a little bit. You may find some point up, some point down. It doesn't seem to affect the fishing of the fly. Nip these off. And I'll get another 3. 2, 3. What I do, I get the knees, I call them the knees. The knot gives a joint of a leg, and I get those together, and I get them about the same length, and I tie them on like that. There you'll see what we've got. I'll show you the fly later on, and you'll see how they've come out. Okay, now that's that. Now I'm going to put on a thorax, and just before I do, I'm going to nip out this surplus bit of hackle stalk like that. Now the thorax I like to use is peacock herl. The tips, as you know, are a bit brittle, so I break those off like that, and you can see when I draw my fingers down it opens up the flue. So I put this on now. One wind and I draw it through a little bit, and I got my silk at the front, and I wind this thorax now behind. Oh, that was a brittle one because it snapped, but don't worry, we'll go with one. I had 2 pieces there, but one long one will be enough. Peacock herl does have an attraction for trout, and it's certainly got something. I'm winding this now towards the eye a bit, and I tie it off in a second or two. And you probably notice my silk is parked up the eye of the hook. Okay, now I'm there. I'll secure this like that. Couple of winds, nip it off, and I now take my silk back over the thorax like this, which in a way is sort of ribbing it, and I let it hang over that side like that. Now I'm going to connect up again my, I'll call it my gallows tool, and I wind the hackle. And what I'm doing in theory is winding down onto the shank. My winds are one below each other all the time, so that I get the hackle well down. Now that I'm there, I'm going to use my hackle pliers on it like that and let it hang over that side, and now I wind the silk around the base of the hackle. I can move that away. And I'm now going to wind this around, but I'm above the tip of the hackle, but I'm down pretty well tight onto the shank. And that's securing everything there. Now then, I'm going to nip off this hackle tip. I don't want to remove any hackle, so I just get a sharp scissors and I push like that, and there's the tip. Right, now I'm at that situation. I want to now do a whip finish on the around the base of the hackle. To do that, the way I do it is I sort of tilt the fly, and I'm going to try to keep it in your focus. So I will be bringing it up as we go. Hopefully you can still see that. So I'm now going to put a whip finish around the base of the hackle. I'm just winding like this. Winding like this. That's enough. Get my varnish. Blob of varnish on my needle. And I draw up and I wipe the varnish at the base of the hackle onto the silk as I remove the dubbing needle. Top on the varnish before I tip it, which has happened to me more than once. Okay, now I'm going to get you back in picture like that, and I'm now going to cut the silk just like that. Now you can see the parachute hackle, and this floss I've used for the wings. What I do with the loops now I don't need, so I do this, take them away, and that's it. There's our daddy long legs. I'll position it to show you in the vise in a moment a bit better. But I just want to tell you, if you see a natural daddy land on the water, it'll be waterlogged, but it'll try to swim. And it sort of struggles with its legs, and the legs always trail back behind it. So that the legs on the fly should be back behind like this. But the hackle up the front helps to keep it afloat. And although that's quite a large hook, the hook is a mustard, 94840, size 10. You can use any hook really. There's plenty of other hooks that will do this job, but it needs to be a light wire with a wide gape. I use this hook for a moth and for other dry flies because it is a light wired hook. Now if I just rotate it a bit, maybe you can see it a bit better. It's a very good fly on rivers but also on still waters too. Is that coming out okay? Useful fly. I'm sure you'll like it. So I will say that's the Daddy Longlegs, and thank you for watching.